Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Total Truth Show. And here on the Total Truth Show, we want to help you break free from the lies and propaganda of the mainstream media, all the disinformation and misinformation. We want to help you blast through all of that. And my name is Ken Kleinberg, coming to you all the way from the USA, San Diego, California.
And I'm Aldwyn Altuney, known as the Media Queen from the Gold Coast in Australia.
There is a great awakening happening in the world right now, and you're going to want to come along for the ride.
A lot of lies are coming to the surface. There's a lot of awakening happening, and as this awakening is happening, people realize they've been deceived for years. They've been lied to for years around all sorts of things. A lot of people have been blind to what has been going on in the world, and now they're starting to see. They're starting to see things in a different light.
Through our show, we want to raise global consciousness to quantum critical mass. And we don't want you just to accept the things that we're saying. That goes for our guests as well. We want you to do the research for yourself. Get out there and start questioning things. Start looking things up. Do the research. We want to pave the way for a new awakened world. And we want you to come along for the ride. So with that, let's get started, you guys. Let's dive into today's episode. Once again, welcome.
Welcome to Total Truth Show episode 135. Today we're going to chat about the truth about the justice system. This is an exclusive interview with an extraordinary man. I'm so excited to be presenting this with my amazing co-host, Ken Kleinberg from the US. We have Steve Barrett with us. Now, a bit about Steve Barrett and the history behind what we're going to chat about today. This is a very, very important topic and something not enough people talk about. Not enough people step up and talk about some of the things that are going on at levels of government and at high levels of the justice system that are completely corrupt, right? There's so much corruption out there and not enough people have the guts to speak up about it. And the man we're going to chat with today, Steve Barrett, has the guts to speak up about it. He is a veteran Australian journalist and television producer with more than 4 decades, that's 40 years of experience across print, TV news, current affairs, investigations, and public relations. Beginning his career with News Limited in 1976, who I've also worked with, News Limited as a journalist, he progressed from cadet journalist to senior reporting and producing roles with major Australian media organisations, including the Daily Mirror, Sydney Sun, 7 Network, 9 Network, 60 Minutes, A Current Affair, and News Corp Australia. That is all the big guns. Throughout his distinguished career, Steve built a reputation for investigative journalism, TV production, and media communications. He is currently 68 years of age, and what we're chatting about today is what happened around the Plutus payroll scandal, which is widely known as the largest tax fraud case in Australian history, siphoning $105 million. It was led by co-conspirators between 2014 and 2017, and the scheme involved diverting tax payments meant for the Australian Tax Office into a complex network of second-tier shell companies. Enter the scene, Steve Barrett reporting on the case, who ended up wrapped up in a complete schmozzle. So, Steve, welcome to the show.
Hello, and I'm happy to be here.
Fantastic to have you here. Now, we met on Friday night at the Child Protection Foundation Gala Ball in Sydney, and you were the keynote speaker there, and your history around that is very interesting too. So why don't you tell us a bit about how you came to be at the Child Protection Foundation Ball on Friday night before we get into the meat of the story today?
Well, basically, the elected key speaker had an operation and she couldn't fly. And she lives in Tasmania. And the MC, Gary Martin, is the book editor of the book I'm writing. And he came to me and he said, "Steve, would you fill in?" And I said, "What do you want me to talk about?" And he said, "Well, all you have to do is talk about the very first chapter of your book. And the first chapter is called Run, Dolly, Run." And that's all about how the 60 Minutes team that I led to Honduras in South America. We tracked down and busted Australia's most wanted man, and he was a pedophile. There were 91 warrants out for his arrest, and it came down to this. Basically, there was an argument between politicians. The New South Wales, the state government, had the warrants out for his arrest, which included numerous sexual assaults on juveniles under the age, some as young as 8, some as young as 9. And also, because he was a school teacher, science teacher, he had the ability to do cook-ups. In other words, create drugs, speed, things like that they would use on these kids. So the warrants were for sexual assaults, videoing the kids, making money out of the videos, illicit black trade, and also doping the kids, which could have killed them. They were using the drugs on the kids, using the kids as guinea pigs. So he was a wanted man. So basically what happened is that a certain diplomat in America was leaving, and he didn't do too much in the way of assisting the New South Wales police, because when it goes overseas, it goes into the hands of the Australian Federal Police, I suppose a bit like the FBI in America, the federal authorities. So basically what happened, there was arguments over budgets and things like that, and the state police, who had the job of prosecuting him and arresting him, were not very happy with what the federal counterparts were doing. And so the main guy in the Child Protection Enforcement Agency, who I had known for a long time in my career as a crime journalist, contacted me and said, Steve, your show's got a big budget. And I said, yep. And he said, well, here he is. He's in Tegucigalpa. And I said, Teguci bloody where? Where the hell's that? And he said, South America. So basically, the first chapter of the book I'm writing also had a component that we had to take the Australian Federal Police officer based in Washington down to, he met us in Miami, and we flew across down to South America, and we set up a trap and we busted him, and we got him extradited back to Miami, where Australia has an extradition treaty to get him back to Australia, where in the end, he got sentenced to 30 years in prison. So that's what I spoke about the other night. And with the Child Protection Society or charity fundraiser that does great work, and there should be bodies like that worldwide.
Absolutely. Well, we know pedophilia rings are worldwide, and we know people in very high places are deeply involved in these pedophilia rings. And, the whole Epstein thing, I believe Epstein's still alive out there. There has been reports and photos of him still alive out there. If you dig into the Epstein files, it's very, very interesting, the deep, dark web of all of that. It's absolutely atrocious. We're brought up to trust authority. We're brought up to trust government, right? And we are at a point now, I believe, where people have no trust whatsoever in the justice system or the government or any of them. Now, please share about what happened with Plutus payroll systems and how you got involved.
Okay. The Plutus payroll system, Plutus payroll was a service provider. Government companies that would have large staff on the payroll, they'd come in and they'd independently do the payroll and look after it for a service fee. But what was happening, this group of directors set up what you would call second tier companies, in other words, straw directors, and they would go to, let me say, the down and outs of society, people living in caravans, drug dealers, people not making much money, but they would say to them, look, we could pay you $500 a week just so we could use your name. So then they would use their name, set up a bank account, and make them a director of these not shelf companies, but straw director companies, second tier companies. So all these large amounts of wages that they were doing, there had to be pay as you go and a goods and services tax. Now that money was being hidden in the dodgy straw direct companies and was not being paid in remittance tax to the government, right? So the government didn't like this, and then the police, the Australian Federal Police, along with the Australian Taxation Office, started to secretly investigate this. In the meantime, two people that were involved, one whom I knew, bit of a shady character, but in the world of journalism, you meet spivs and shady people and, all sorts of people in your career. And a lot of these people want to use you as a baseball bat to square up on people. But that is the world of journalism. Anyway, so I was tipped off by this person who said, come to a meeting. And he then revealed to me and another person at the meeting that the tax letters being sent to these poor mum and dad investors, the down and outs from the straw companies who were getting, you owe the tax department millions of dollars. They revealed to me that the Deputy Commissioner of Taxation was sending these letters, but the real owner of the company that should be getting the letters was in fact his son. And his son was a director of the Plutus payroll company. And I thought, well, that's an explosive story, right?
Sure.
So as the investigation went on, I got involved. Of course, the first thing any journalist does is, well, I need to see these tax assessment letters. I need proof that the story is real. And then that's where I sort of, dealing with these type of people, you've always got to be careful because conmen are conmen and they're very good at it. But they didn't tell me that their grand plan was to really stand over the Plutus payroll people in, let me say, the tax fraud. So they got into it and they created a second crime where they demanded by way of blackmail, you pay us $25 million and we'll keep it quiet. We won't tell the journo to do the story or we won't dob you into the authorities. Now, I didn't know anything about a blackmail plan. So in the end, as the investigation carried on, it just got so crazy that the Australian Federal Police ended up charging me with being part of a joint criminal enterprise, that I was part of the blackmail scheme. Now, at the end of the day, I was a goddamn bloody journalist doing my job, right? And that then caused me to go to a trial so you have the Australian Federal Police and they brief what you call the Commonwealth DPP, the Commonwealth Director's Public Prosecutions Office, which would be like the District Attorney's Office, I suppose, in America. They join and they become the Crown. So it's the Crown versus, and I'm the defence. So this trial, I had to fight. At this stage, I had my own freelance business called Box Media One Proprietary Limited because I'd left mainstream media. So when this happened, I wasn't backed by the larger television networks or anybody like that. I had to pay my own. So it cost me my house in Sydney. And in the end, it was a long fight. The government in the end withdrew the charge and it cost me my whole life superannuation. So I've been punished left, right and centre for being an innocent man, being a journalist of 40 odd years, paying my taxes all along. And I got whacked for it and it's still carrying on. And the bottom line about this, when you ask the people in authority, and this is what our debate I think we were going to today, no one answers questions. They just run. The people involved, whether they be police investigators, Australian Federal Police, who then brief the solicitors attached to the government prosecution service, when you ask the questions, how did this happen, you never get an answer. One will blame the other, and you just watch them progress the ladder in their careers. And there are no consequences when people like that get it wrong. So I believe there should be an inquiry into that very black, dark area. And this has been going on for too long, not only in our country, but in other countries. And that is where the police And in that very dark area, what happens between when the police investigators look at something and then they hand it over to the DPP and then they create a legal document and no one knows what goes on in that black area. That area, that process needs to be opened up. The sunshine needs to be shone in. The cupboards need to open up. There needs to be a judicial inquiry into what happens and why they get it wrong.
Yes, 100%. Totally agree with you. And I'm really sorry to hear this has happened. I can just imagine how much stress this has put on you. Plus, it's obviously your reputation. You've been such a highly regarded journalist for so long, and they just come in and they just, they basically, it's tarnished your reputation. So tell us more
I'll
about
tell you how stupid it got. When people, and we've seen it just recently here with the SAS soldier, Ben Roberts-Smith, where the Office of Special Investigator, basically the Australian Federal Police, their team, and they made sure that they would have like a Hollywood-style FBI production arrest. So they waited till he was on a plane with his young daughters and arrested him at Sydney Airport, and it became a big media show, right? And then he got charged later that night. In my case, when they raided my home looking for documents, I assisted. I said, yeah. I said, well, what do you need? But they kept saying to me, Mr. Barrett, you're not under arrest. And I'm saying, well, what are you doing here? What's all this about? But I'll help you in any way you want. I've been doing this for 40 odd years. Like, what's the problem? Whilst they were saying to me, you're not under arrest, at the same time, they're putting my name in court documents tendered in court cases all around Sydney and other regional courts, calling me a criminal. So I was not allowed the chance to have a solicitor in the courts to defend my good name. And the next thing I know, I'm being published in newspapers and in media outlets all around the country, some of it that went overseas. Veteran 60 Minutes person Steve Barrett is involved in a criminal offence. But here's the point. I was not charged. I was not charged with anything. It took them 13 months to finally work out what sort of a charge they were going to put on me. And everyone knew that I had, in fact, briefed the executive producer of A Current Affair, which is a national television program. So if I'm involved in criminality, why would I be briefing a television outfit about that? Hey, I'm a criminal involved in blackmail. And those people, the Australian Federal Police, are the people responsible to try and fight counter-terrorism in our country. My godfather. So that started for me a 6-year legal battle. And then the first jury, they were so confused, the jury head woman sat outside the jury room for 2 days because there was infighting going on in the jury room, basically assault. Now, people should have been charged over that. You can get charged, a husband and wife can get charged with assault just being in the kitchen, like domestic violence. Mm-hmm. She was crying outside the jury room. She then asked to be excused. The jury went to 11. They still couldn't work it out. And after 8 days of deliberation, the jury of 11 people couldn't even get 10. So the court case became a hung jury. So lo and behold, 3 days later, because there are other court cases going on with the fraudsters, and it was a big high-profile project for the federal government, they just locked me in. And so I was left like a piece of rotten fruit hanging on a tree, and I had to go to trial again for a retrial. Now, I had no money left because I fought the first trial. Now, at the end of all of this, when all the cases were over, they knew that they couldn't convict me, so they withdrew the charge. What the hell was all of that about? And that's where I say there needs to be a full explanation by the people who are in authority, and we're talking about police officers, we're talking about government solicitors, we're talking about politicians who were briefed A week before they went to my house, I have documents under FOI, Freedom of Information, that says something like this: won't Channel 7 be embarrassed about Steve Barrett next week? Now, for God's sake, I'd left Channel 7 10 months before that. They couldn't even get that right. And these are the people who we trust to protect us from terrorism and things like this. There is a serious problem with our lawmakers, politicians, and what happens in the court system. And anything that happens in the court system, if the court system gets it wrong, they then say, oh, well, Steve can have the ability to make an application to fix it. Now, hang on. The moment you go anywhere near a court or a solicitor, even though it's not your fault, it's going to cost you money. And that's where the whole legal system is wrong.
Totally. I totally agree. And I believe we should be able to record in courts. Why is it that they can record in courts and they do the transcripts in courts, but no, the public can't come and record anything, because we know that things get changed in those transcripts. We know for sure things get changed on the.
We're seeing that. That's a very good point. And we're seeing that right at this moment. As the world knows, we had, I think it was 15 people shot dead at Bondi Beach, beautiful Bondi Beach in Sydney. We have a royal commission going on into that at the moment. They allowed only a few people from ASIO, New South Wales Police, but the real nitty-gritty stuff that the public should be, right, they closed the court. And so the evidence is heard in camera. But we, as the taxpayers and the people that should know, right, they closed the court. So I agree with what you just said.
Yeah, it's outrageous. We've got Angel Black with us. Hello. Angel Black is one of our authors in Fear to Freedom Book 1. Angel Black actually exposed something absolutely atrocious with the US government. So you might want to have a look in that, the US military. Yes, absolutely. Angel says that black area works like a cult. Yes, absolutely. There's some very dark energies out there, very dark energies. And unfortunately, a lot of them are in very high places. And the average Joe, you and I, are the ones paying for their luxurious lifestyles and satanic ways. You know, it's absolutely outrageous. Now, Ken, I know you've been very quiet. You've probably got all sorts of things you want to say. So over to you, Ken. What are your thoughts about this?
Yeah, so Steve, I think you made some really, really valid points as far as, you know, that dark place in the system. And the other valid point I think you really made there is that is a really good question. Why are they allowed to do transcripts? Why are they allowed to record, but no one else is? And that's actually a point that I never quite actually thought about. And yeah, so good point there. And I think that's one of the things that, you know, that more people need to stand up against. More people need to stand up against these dark areas, these areas that, you know, convict people with no like real evidence and make all this and then make it a show of the media and all that other stuff. We see it on many different aspects, many different things. The media makes a show out of things when there really is nothing to make a show out of. And it's just interesting, just really interesting. So, but Steve, I got a question for you though. So all that money you spent, do you, winning the case and finally having it dismissed, does that mean you get some of that money back, or are you forever lost in all the money that you spent?
Well, at the moment, it's forever lost. Here's what happened. For the first trial, my legal fees cost me, I think it was $483,000, right? Which was just about 95% of my life superannuation. So then we fight a bit further, and we have to fight the fact that I don't want to go to a second trial to go through this again, because I had to sell my house in Sydney to pay for my legal fees. So when we got to what you call a stay of proceedings application, we won that and the Crown withdrew. So at the end of that, the judge then asked my lawyer, will there be an application for costs? In other words, do I go to another court case? Everything's a court case. So do I put on another court case, which was a cost hearing, to get back some sort of monies? Probably wouldn't have been full 100%, but maybe 50% of the 480 odd thousand that I lost. Anyway, we prepared a very strong document. The very good lawyer that I had, a former judge, Dr. Greg Woods, KC now, King's Counsel, said that the Crown's case was nothing more than a blizzard of lies. And that'll be the name for my book, by the way.
I love that name. That is so good.
The
my
blizzard
friend.
of lies. Anyway, so the point, getting to your point, the judge who was about to hear the retrial but heard the no bill application, the no stay proceedings application, came back and said, look, it was a very weak case against Mr. Barrett, but I still think the Crown were right within putting it before a jury. So no costs. So in other words, for me to get that answer to say, no, bad luck, run away, it's cost you all that money, that then cost me another $55,000 to prepare the legal application for the cost hearings. So I got whacked again for being an innocent man. So that then took it over to $520,000. So to answer your question, there's $520,000 from the beautiful judicial system. You know, you talk about Lady Justice in the scales. I don't think she has a blindfold on. The justice scales are bent upside down like that. It is a joke. So for me to pursue any further, all I've really got left, Ken, is the court of public opinion. And that's why I'm talking to Aldwyn and you today, that more people should speak up. The system is wrong. Understand that you and I, in a proper democratic society, we are innocent until proven guilty. And it is on the absolute 100% onus of the prosecution to prove you guilty. They could not do that. But I'm out of pocket. I've suffered financially. My family suffered. We've had to move house. I've had to leave all my friends in Sydney. I've had to start a new life. I suffer from medical conditions because of the stress, right? And the people involved in this, mind you, on the day that these raids happened, which included my home, we had the Prime Minister of Australia, Malcolm Turnbull, standing up saying, who is an ex-solicitor, and he should know better that there are people before the court. And he was saying things like, oh, the Australian Federal Police have done a wonderful job, right? And then you had the Treasurer of the day who went on to be the Prime Minister, and his name was Scott Morrison, and he was doing press conferences, and he was saying things like, if you do this to the taxpayer, we will hunt you down. We will hunt you down. Now, no one's convicted of anything. It's a free-for-all kick everyone's head in by the government. What happened to the number one legal principle in the world? And that is, everybody is entitled to their innocence. You are innocent until proven guilty. And that is what we have lost, certainly here in Australia. I mean, the classic case you may have heard about, the girl who claimed that she was raped by another fellow person in the Parliament of Australia. Her name was Brittany Higgins. Now, at the end of the day, the Australian Federal Police told the politicians, and in that case it was the state, which was the Australian Capital Territory, that they don't think that they had enough to charge the person, but still the politicians had got changed and still they went ahead with it. Well, the fallout after that case is just unbelievable. I have a saying, and I've got a couple of sayings, but I'd like to say this. One of my favourite sayings is that, you know, when politics comes through the door in court cases, justice flies out the window.
Oh, that's a good one.
And that's what we are seeing. And we're seeing it big time in this country and in your country over there in America, Ken, and in England, right? When things go wrong, the people involved only get promoted.
Mm.
And they don't care about anybody else. It's just roadkill, roadkill, roadkill. And there is no accountability. I called for an inquiry after my court case, but it just fell on deaf ears. So anyway, going back to your original question, have I got any chance of getting the over $500,000 that they took from me, my life savings and superannuation? Probably not.
Wow. Look, I have faith, okay, and I think where there's a will, there's a way as well. And I think that's really important to keep that faith, because I think for a lot of people, they do, it becomes all too hard. It becomes all too hard to take on the big guys, right? And there's also things that happen, such as death threats. Now, I was actually chatting to someone earlier today who was exposing a whole lot of bank fraud, and she started to get death threats. She was about to put a book out with a whole lot of people's information that were all this sort of bank fraud, and she got death threats, and she stopped the project. And I said to her, well, would you rather live a lifetime on your knees or one day standing on your feet? And unfortunately, a lot of people live a lifetime on their knees, and they bow down to authority, which really has, authority is, in some ways, yes, I guess we need some kind of structure and organization in the world. However, we are at a point where people have lost so much faith. And if we actually look at democide for a moment, now, democide is the murder of people by their government. Now, did you know that democide has actually, there's pioneering political scientist R.J. Rummel has done a lot of research into democide. And the research shows that governments have killed more than 260 million people, making democide far deadlier than all historical wars combined. Killing by the government. The people that we are meant to be trusting are killing the people. So what do we do? Yeah, we speak up about it through alternative media. Thank goodness we have alternative media now that we can speak up. And thank goodness we have platforms like BitChute and Rumble that are not censored, because we know there's also a lot of censorship that happens of some of this information, right? So what do we do to actually help impact change here, Steve? What do you think the solution is?
Well, look, I think the traditional role of the media and the press has been eroded, and it's very sad. Going back to all the contracts that I signed over the years, we had to understand the laws of defamation, slander, any brand new laws that came into society, and this was written into our contracts. We had to understand what a D notice was. Now, I'm not sure if it's called a D notice now, but a D notice is the government, if there's any one publication that's going to write anything treacherous against the sovereign, against our nation, the government can have the ability to come in, slap you with a D notice and stop publication, right? Now, all these things, but everything's been changed, and the internet has had a massive, massive role in that. And let me say this, anybody today can be a publisher. Kids can take a photograph and go bang and publish it and send it around the world, right? So I think that is an area that is so serious. I can tell you years ago from my experience, one of the glamour squads in the world of detectives, criminal investigation, used to be called the Breakers. They were called the Breakers because they were known as the special breaking detail, because they would break down the detail. For example, there was a very good gang from Melbourne, and they were known as the Diamond Drill Tip Gang, that were doing sensational robberies because they were using special diamond tip drills to get into banks at night. So this squad had to go to all the hardware, and they actually found the diamond tip drill and were able to source it. So that was good detective work. But those days are gone. Those type of investors, it is all now a brand new world, and it is cyber. It's when you sleep at night. Who is getting into your bank account? Who is doing it electronically? You're in bed at 3 a.m. in the morning, and yet you're buying Cartier watches worth $5,000 in Hong Kong. How does this happen? So the world has changed in so many different ways, right? But I do think that one of the things that we have to look at, because a lot of my court case that I was involved in, the absolute sensible proper police work where they would go and check things like you would have to do in the old days just did not happen. All they did was rely on, there was a text message here, and that was said there, and there's a telephone record, but we know that telephone record would probably make Steve Barrett be ex-culpatory, so they lose that one, right?
Of course.
So the system can get manipulated. And they manipulate the system by cherry picking. And they cherry pick what they want that looks good of the information that they get off telephone intercepts, other forms of digital internet media. And that is the area worldwide. There are things being done now in little places, but there has to be a major worldwide body that looks at all of this, because it's out of control.
And I want to add to that. It's not just cherry picking in the justice system, if you will. It's not just that. The cherry picking aspect of it actually is found in many places. And I'm going to just share this here and then let you guys move on here. But it's found in the health and wellness industry. So all the way back in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, when they demonetized saturated fats, when they demonetized like the real foods that we are supposed to be eating, they cherry-picked studies to prove their own point. They cherry-picked studies to point the finger at sugar instead of saturated fat being the cause of coronary heart disease. They even paid $50,000 to Harvard scientists to put out an article that pointed the finger at saturated fat rather than sugar. So this cherry picking has been going on for a very long time, even before the internet came into play and the cyber and all that other stuff. This is an old game that is still being played. It's just being played it's just being played at a whole new level now. But the cherry picking, they've been doing that for decades and decades and decades. Yeah. So anyhow, continue, my friend.
Yeah. It's a form of propaganda.
It is.
Yes. And interestingly, we actually did a show called The Truth About Propaganda, and it got censored on social media. It's hilarious. But the good thing is about our show today, even if this gets censored, we have backup copy, and we're going to have our own download of video and audio that we share on Spotify, BitChute, Rumble, and other places. So even if it gets censored on Facebook and YouTube are the two biggest culprits of the censorship, we have a backup copy. Okay. So we will find ways to get the information out there. Absolutely. And thank you so much, everyone who's joining us now on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Angel Black loves your book title. I love it too. A Blizzard of Lies. That's really cool.
Love that. That's such a powerful title. Like, that's one of those titles that if I saw your book somewhere on an article, there's no question. I don't care what your book's about. I'd be like, click buy. I mean, titles like that attract my eye, so I love stuff like that.
And of course, you're on the Total Truth Show, and we've got the exclusive here because Steve hasn't revealed on any TV or radio about any of this since it's all happened. So we're very grateful that you've let us have the exclusive on this story, Steve. Salvo Barbagallo, here's another one of our beautiful authors in Fear to Freedom, Book 1. Now, Salvo says, we have a legal system, not a justice system. You can only defend yourself with wealth. It is not a system of the people, only for the privileged. Yes, exactly, Salvo. And as it says in the Thrive documentaries, if you want to know what's going on in the world, follow the money. Follow the money. Show me the money, honey. And that's really exactly what's going on here. However, the thing is that you can't take any of that money with you when you go to the afterlife. Okay, now I do believe in an afterlife because I believe we're spiritual beings having a human experience. So I think somewhere we're going to be, our spirit's going to go. In fact, we know scientifically it's proven the minute we die, our body becomes lighter, our spirit goes somewhere, right? And all these evil people with all of this money that they're sitting back and counting, and I honestly don't know how these people can live with themselves. However, somehow they do, and somehow they get off on making people's lives hell. And as I say, hurt people hurt people. Hurt people hurt people. And there's a lot of hurting people out there right now. And unfortunately, a lot of very twisted people high up in levels of government and high up in all sorts of places with lots of money who have no morals whatsoever, and who are carrying on like complete demons, really, if you look at it, the dark and light forces of the world. Angel Black says, yes, the death threats are incredibly debilitating. My book is titled It Only Takes a Bullet. Yes, awesome, Angel Black. It Only Takes a Bullet. And actually, that's the title also of a snippet of the full book, It Only Takes a Bullet, the chapter that's in Fear to Freedom Book 1, because the general I worked with told me if I exposed the truth, that's what they would do. It only takes a bullet. Wow. Yeah, it's full on, Angel Black. And thank you for sharing that. And thank you for having the guts to share your story in Fear to Freedom Book 1 and your story out there, because, too many people live in fear, unfortunately. However, the good news is that more and more people are starting to step up and are starting to speak up because they've had enough. As I was chatting with Steve yesterday, and Steve said, enough is enough is enough is enough, right, Steve? Enough is enough.
Right. I mean, we used to say, in the old days at 60 Minutes, we always used to say some of the things that we could not put to air, but we are saying, truth is stranger than fiction. And it really is when the truth comes out.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I've also noticed that in government, and if government gets something wrong, instead of just owning up, they dig their heels in. And they become very vicious about it, and they and they'll square up on you.
Blackmail.
That is not a democratic society.
Yeah, no, blackmail. That's their biggest thing that they use. You mentioned earlier in this episode the Epstein files.
Yep.
Epstein in general, like that whole scene, that's how they got people. That's how they hooked people into their ring. They would invite them to a party and then wait for them to get in a compromising position and document it. And then later, when they wanted that person to do something, they would hold this evidence. It's like, you're ours now. And this is how they hook people into that system. Hollywood, all of it. Like, that's how they do it.
Yeah, it's interesting how Trump has been, wiping under the carpet the whole Epstein thing, and how, as it was all being exposed, all these photos of Epstein and Trump together years ago, how he suddenly decides to bomb Iran, right? So, yeah, let's just throw another bomb on another country. Oh, and then he says, are we still talking about the Epstein situation? It's like, what the hell? I actually thought Trump was okay at one point, but now I have lost complete faith in Trump. But anyway, that's a whole other story. I won't get into too much politics here, but let's go back to the comments here. Salvo says, unfortunately, judges, lawyers, and politicians are sacred cows and not accountable for their actions or the damages they cause. They should be open to investigation and accountability, just like the general public. Absolutely. 100%. 100%. What are your thoughts on that, Steve?
Well, just recently we saw the Chief Justice of the New South Wales Supreme Court had a bit of a shot back at a former Australian Prime Minister, and his name was Tony Abbott. And just because he's the Chief Justice of the New South Wales Supreme Court, does that make him any smarter or better than anybody else? So he was able to be critical of a former Prime Minister. Now, the point I'm trying to make is that why can't any other member of society also be given that opportunity to be critical about things, or even even if they thought Tony Abbott was right and they argued against what the Chief Justice said, that should be published. But I think what Salvo is trying to point out, that people in high positions can say whatever they want, they get away with it, and the rest of us can just shut up and have to cop it. And I think there's too much of that going on. You know, I go back to the old style of the press. I mean, in the old days of the media. Sure, we have certain laws of defamation and things like that, but we're entitled to investigate and put our points forward. But if you have a look at government departments worldwide, they now employ more journalists on the staff to be spin doctors. Have a look at Donald Trump. Have a look at, you know, even in police forces, right? I'm sick to death. I don't watch the television news now at night, but I'm sick to death of seeing video footage supplied to the media outlets on a silver platter. And you'll watch the television news and you'll see a watermark on the screen and it's got Australian Federal Police. And in the middle, it might have Victorian Police or New South Wales Police. And then on the right-hand side, it will have Border Control. And you're looking at it, you think, well, who owns this footage? I mean, who's got the biggest dick here? Excuse the pun. But then you lose sight of what the actual event's about. So what I'm saying to you is that in the old days and in the real days of journalism, we'd go out and catch and kill our own. But now we have government departments, right? Government departments that are filming their own events, sanitizing what they want, and then giving it to the media. Now that happens in America, Australia, Europe, England. It happens everywhere. And I think that is a problem too, because how do we know? I mean, I think defence lawyers should be jumping up and down about this. They really should.
Yes, 100%. And the problem is too, a lot of the newsrooms now, because of the changing ways of the media over the years, a lot of them are struggling to get advertising revenue. So a lot of them basically are propaganda machines for their advertisers, which are, you know, how much advertising money is spent by the government, you know, to
100%.
basically, you know, they're funded by the government. So, you know, and they don't have the crews to be able to get out to all the jobs to do everything because they're so short-staffed. And and the quality of journalism is one reason why I left my full-time job as a journalist. My last job was at the Sun newspapers on the Gold Coast in 2005. One of the main reasons I left is the senior reporters were leaving and they were taking on young cadet journalists. They didn't care about quality. The quality was going out the window. There were syndicated stories all over the place and there were mistakes all over the place. And I just, you know, I take pride in my work and I didn't want to be a part of it. Plus the negativity and the infighting and the backstabbing and all of that happens in, you know, behind the scenes in the media as well. It's a very cutthroat industry. And, you know, I've had my own business now for 21 years and, 21 years outside of there, but I started actually 2002. I started a photography business, but basically, yes, the whole world of the media has changed rapidly. And of course, 2004 is when Facebook started. And now we're at a point in history where there's 5.8 billion active social media users out of the 9 billion roughly people on the planet. We have about 2/3 of the population are active social media users. So if you want to get your message out to the masses, you got to go where the masses are. And the masses are on social media nowadays, and more people are not watching the mainstream news. They don't believe the mainstream. They're trying to roll out this new handy virus thing at the moment, right? We've just had COVID, which was a whole lot of BS, and now they're rolling out this handy virus. Oh, and apparently it started on a cruise ship again. Well, fancy that. And you know, it's fascinating what's going on out there, but people are not buying it as much as they were buying it because they've seen the effects of these lies and deceit, and it's all coming out. We're in the year of the fire horse. It is all coming out in the open. The truth is coming out, and the truth will set us free. It will set us free, and it's time.
It's well time. Said. And yes, look, it saddens me to watch the news, the quality of the news. Since when in my day would we ever be interested in a car accident because a car ran off the road and exploded?
It's called a
It,
distraction.
yeah. Now, the only reason why all news services are doing that now, and it's just lazy, there's no journalism in it whatsoever. Somebody happens to be nearby and they video it. So it's not, it's just become a perv
Now,
fact.
journalism has gone out the window a long time ago, and here's the thing.
Yep.
So it's not just the stupid things like car accident and different things like that. And I can understand you telling a story around a really crazy serious car accident where a number of people died, like that I can understand. But just like a simple little car accident, that to me is a distraction. And you're right, it's weak. And the reason is because what I find interesting is when they want to sell a story and move a story, whether political or whatever it is, every news station will pick up the same freaking language, and it just goes across all of them. Now,
Yep.
when you have true journalists out there truly reporting, you're not going to have the same freaking story played word for word on every major news station. You're not going to have that. You're going to have the true journalists. They might share a different story. This channel might share something else. This channel might take a different angle, different things like that. That's journalism. What we see on the mainstream news today is not journalism in any way, shape, or form. In fact, it's what back in the 1950s, between 1950 and 1970, when the operation was in full force, it's called Operation Mockingbird. And that's all the media is. It's Operation Mockingbird. Now, I don't know how heavily involved the CIA is in that anymore for the present day, but I definitely think that a different version of Mockingbird is going on. Back in the day, that 1950s, 1970s, maybe a little further than that, that was a heavy CIA operation where they used the media to influence the public. Now they're still doing that, but yeah, it's just absolutely crazy. That's not journalism. That's why I commonly say nowadays, we are the news. We are the journalists. We are the people that are out there making the stand, doing the things, and that's what it is today. So, and we see it. The major news stations, they're crumbling. You've got CNN, the pedo network, right? Oh my gosh, it's just crazy.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. We've got beautiful Kerry Fozzard watching on Facebook. Hello, Kerry. Kerry is the founder of the Child Protection Foundation with her husband, Bruce, and they do an amazing job with getting the education out, etc. Now, Kerry says a judge said in a child abuse case after it had been decided the child was going to a safe place, you need to revisit this when she turns 12 and can scream. It costs $60,000 to keep one child safe. These cases should never go to family court. Wow. Thank you for sharing that, Kerry. Oh my gosh, it's just insane.
The family court really does need to. I mean, they looked at it 30, 40 years ago, but that was an area of taboo, the family court, but there's still problems there. I mean, I remember getting phone calls from guys in jail, and some of the things that they would tell me were amazing, but we weren't allowed to report it because it was in the family law court area. I think there's work being done behind the scenes there in the family law court area. I'm not sure how it works in the States or in England, but there's a lot of privacy issues, as we know. But yeah, anyway, tell Kerry that was a very good song she did the other night. She's a very good singer.
Yeah. Yes, she did a great rendition of Nutbush the other night. It was awesome. At the she was actually a professional singer for a long time, and she gave it up to go full time into the Child Protection Foundation and the great work they do there. So this was their 12th ball they had on Friday night, and it was an amazing event. Dame Rita Rose was the auctioneer there, and we had Tori was singing live as well, and we had Licia Malvine did a beautiful song as well. So it was really a wonderful night, and so great to meet you, Steve. And Steve supported the cause, of course, by buying also a Fear to Freedom book and making a great donation as well to the cause. So, and you've read nearly the whole book, Steve. Fear to
I've read
Freedom.
the whole book.
You've read the whole book since then. So that's since Friday. That's only in a few days. So obviously you're a very fast reader.
I'm reading 3 books at once and writing my own.
Wow.
3 books at once. I can't even do that. Like, that's crazy. I am blessed if I get through 1 book just because my brain. Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
I envy your skills, my friend. Just like my mom. My mom can read through a book in like 2 or 3 days, and I'm like, can you just give me your reading ability? That would be great, so I can just blast my way through book after book after book.
Yes. And what are your thoughts on Fear to Freedom? Because really this is about, what we're talking about, the truth about the justice system. The truth is that a lot of people have a hell of a lot of fear around doing anything against the justice system or actually questioning the justice system. Heaven forbid, may you question something. And so the book was all around Fear to Freedom. So what were your thoughts reading the different chapters of the different experiences in there? What were your thoughts there, Steve?
I thought there were many classic examples of emancipation. I thought that it is so good to get things off your spleen and get it out there, and especially to get it out in print so people can actually read what has happened to you, right? So I think the book, From Fear to Freedom, very good name, by the way.
Thank
you. I quite enjoyed it. I mean, I pick it up and I didn't read it from page 1 to the last page. I said, who's this person? I went, bang, read her story. And then I went back, who's this person? Bang, read that story. But in the end, I read everybody's story. So I finished the book pretty quickly. But the main theme of it is this. If something's been troubling you for a long time, get it off your system and get it out and free yourself. And that's what it is. There's many classic examples of that. And people, that's why you do understand the job of psychology and psychologists. There's a need for it because the old mental health is a very, very important area, and we should never lose sight of it. And I think that's what that book's telling us.
Absolutely. Well, that's right. I mean, the subtitle is Conscious Creators Manifesting Magic. You can see actually we've got Kerry Fozzard here and Salvo, who just hopped on the live stream, and Angel Black, of course, right there. So there's some of our amazing authors. And Conscious Creators Manifesting Magic basically means is get conscious to your life, right? And once you get conscious to what's going on in your life, we encourage people to question things. It's amazing what magic, as in what, not magic, MAGIC, not ICK, magic, what magic you can produce in life when you have the guts to step up and speak up and to share the wounds that have perhaps shaped you, how we've turned our mess into our message. As they say, a problem shared is a problem halved. And when we're able to find the voice within us to share some of the challenges that have happened and how we've overcome that, it's amazing how inspiring those stories can be for people. And the trick here is not to compare your story with anybody else's story, because we all have unique stories. And that's the thing about every single person here has a unique story, and everyone's had their own challenges. It doesn't make someone's better or worse or more dramatic or not dramatic. I mean, I had a near-death experience where I nearly drowned out from Coffs Harbour. I mean, that was a huge thing for me, but that was part of my journey, because straight after that I went out in the media with a beach safety message that went on Channel 9 and all over the place to help encourage people to be very conscious of what can happen in the ocean and how to deal with it if you get swept out to sea, because that particular summer period, there were 35 drownings in New South Wales over that summer period. It was a record number of drownings over that summer period in 2023 and 2022 to 2023. And, interestingly, after this happened, I realized that there was a sign at this place at South Boambie Beach that said this was a safe area for children to swim. And so I raised awareness about that. And we, the council changed their website that day to say, be careful of strong sweeps.
What you're saying is that knowledge is power.
Yes, and experienced knowledge is even more powerful when you share your experience. And I do believe everything happens for you, not to you. So, Steve, it's interesting, as a veteran, highly respected journalist of 40 years, that this should happen for you, I guess, in one way, even though at the time it feels like crap. And obviously you've lost a lot of money at this stage. However, I believe there's still hope to be able to, to actually get some compensation for that, because I think that's outrageous. And I think you should be more than compensated. 500 grand is, that's a lot of money. And for someone who's been...
Look, I'm going to point out, and I'll give it to you on your show, but the Albanese government, really, people should know this, that state police forces have a body, like in New South Wales, we have the LEC, which is the Law Enforcement Commission. If police do the wrong thing, misconduct, we have a body called the Independent Commission Against Corruption, against politicians. But the Australian Federal Police Force really has no one now to investigate them when they do things wrong, or incorrect, or areas of malfeasance, corruption in government, in neglect of duty. Now, that body used to be known as the ALECI. It was the Australian Law Enforcement. The Australian Commission for Law Enforcement Integrity. That body's gone. That body got dissolved into now what they created, which they now call the NAC, the National Anti-Crime Commission, right? Well, they haven't done too much, have they? Right? I mean, we had a Royal Commission into robo-debt. People committed suicide, but there wasn't any recommendation. So basically, where there's areas where these bodies, powerful bodies like the Australian Federal Police, like the Commonwealth Director of Public Prosecutions Office, and they are all federal public servants, right? But who investigates them when they do things wrong? Now, they may not have done it with any maliciousness, but there are things where they're incompetent, malfeasance, wrong judgment, and they need to be accounted for. In the United Kingdom, the CPS over there, which is the Crown Prosecution Service, they have an independent body that comes in every year to look at what the Crown, what they have done. Was that court case justified? They have that. In this country, we do not, right? And what I've been through, right, at the end of the day, and what a lot of people don't understand in my case, as a freelance journalist, yes, I put an invoice, but the allegation against me was that I was using my power as a journalist. Well, of course I was. I was a journalist. I was after a good story, and it was a good story, that I was part of a group to obtain $5 million. Now, the two blokes involved in that are $2.5 million each. And silly me, I must be the world's dumbest criminal, because I got paid $2,000 for my journalistic fees, like a tax accountant would, like any professional that runs a business, you get paid for the service. And here's the rub. I put the invoice in for my company. And guess what? The government took out the GST, which was what this was all about. Now, that task force run by the government, was run by the AFP, the Australian Taxation Office, and a special body called the Financial Crime Task Force, which is made up of all these other federal government bodies. So they clearly wanted it to work. It was a government project, and they pushed it through. And that's what happened to me. They knew they were never going to prosecute me, but they kept me going. They kept me going. Then they dropped the charge. I'd already briefed a current affair. I'd already spoken to a number of journalists. As if I would jump into bed with anybody, especially a person I've never, ever met in my life, and then became a conspirator in a blackmail for $5 million? Really? As we said years ago, truth is stranger than a fiction. But it happens. There's another one of my sayings, but I'll give you a better one later.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's interesting. Yes, these organizations that are meant to be, keeping things honest, they're all funded by the government, aren't they? So, of course, why are they going to say anything against the government when they're funded by them?
And when they get it wrong, they should stand up and be accounted for, but they're not. These people just get promoted. The woman who was the head of the Commonwealth Director of Public Prosecutions that put me to trial and to a retrial, she's now a judge in the New South Wales Supreme Court. The woman, the police officer that ran the task force from the Australian Federal Police, she was an inspector at the time. Now she climbed the ladder. She's an assistant commissioner of police.
Wow.
These people just keep climbing the ladder, but no one explains. Why did this happen? Right? And this is at the start of the show. There needs to be an overall body. Now, our government here came in to power originally, the Albanese government, bringing in the National Anti-Corruption Commission, which in my view has been a complete failure because it does nothing. Right?
Yeah.
And there's all these fancy names that they have, but in reality, and you're right, look, it's been a long, goddamn hard road. I had to sell my house in Sydney. When I got up here to go to a retrial again in Sydney, the house that we got up here, they wanted to take that from me. There was a fight over that. And then, yet in the end, they come to the court and they say, oh, no, we've withdrawn it now. There's no more charges. That's it. What the hell was that all about? Who's responsible? And then they duck for cover, right? So the Australian Federal Police kept on saying that we can't use this man who tells lies as a serial liar, and it would be embarrassing for the Australian Federal Police to give evidence in court because this man is not a witness of truth. What's the name of your show today? It's The Truth Show. The police were saying, the police were saying in emails that this man, but still this guy fabricated stories, and then it went from the AFP in their records of interview, it moves to the next body, which is the prosecution service. The prosecution service adopted his lies and put it in what they call the Crown Case Statement of Facts. So they adopted his lies in the case against me at the taxpayer's expense. So it was all about he would say whatever he wants, so he could get a sweetheart deal where he got a discount of 50% on his sentence if he rolled over, right? So it was all about the government. No, we'll get this one here, we'll tick this one, tick that box, tick this box, and they have a program, right? And when they get into areas, like there was a very important thing in my case, which is the most important thing, was when this guy, I haven't heard from this guy for 4 years, and I get a phone call out of the blue. The police had this guy's phone tapped, and out of all the phone calls, the most important phone call that would have clearly been exculpatory and cleared me, guess what? They lost it. So we couldn't use that in the case, right? So how does that happen? And then straight away you're put on the back foot, and then you've got to just fight. It got to the point where I was representing myself, and I became my own barrister, the retrial. And the Crown, what the oldest trick in the book is governments do, they just bombard you with hundreds of papers, and I was up till 3 o'clock in the morning reading documents because I had no secretary, no law clerk, no solicitor, had no barrister, no one left. I did the lot in the end. And then I get to court the next morning, and I remember the new judge saying something to me, Mr. Barrett, do you understand that? And I said, well, Your Honour, no. I said, because I've been up till 2 o'clock in the morning trying to make head or tail out of these documents the Crown sent me, right, the day before we're appearing in court, right? And I've got no secretary, and I don't understand that. And all I've got is just my laptop. I said, I feel as though, Your Honour, someone's flown me in a helicopter over the Amazon jungle and just tipped me out of the helicopter in the middle of the jungle and said, find your own way out. Because that's what the court system, that's what the judge does to you. And as Salvo said, we don't have a justice system. It's a legal system. And that's what it is. Right?
Yes.
So there you go. So that's my fight. And all I got to do now is find a publisher. The publishers read the chapters of my book and say, wow, this is very intriguing. Wow. But then they say, oh, no, not for us. Because they're all, again, there's that word, they're all frightened of litigation. And I say, well, you're a publisher. Isn't that the business that you're in? To publish the truth? The truth? Did you ever read the book on All the President's Men? The truth about Nixon and the Washington Post journalist? That became a number one seller.
Self-publish.
Were they self-published? I can self-publish. I might do that. I'm not sure yet.
Yeah,
but
you
anyway,
can go through KDP on Amazon. That's how I published my book. Is I self-published it through KDP. Of course, I had my business coach walk me through the process, but now that it's done, it's really easy. But I would just encourage you, if you cannot find an actual publisher, do it yourself. Get it out there.
Yes.
Oh well, I'm glad that you invited me on the show today, because, as I say to you, Ken, and to you, Aldwyn, that all I have left now is the court of public opinion. Because if you go to any other court, the moment you talk about action, you've got to have a lawyer. And no matter, lawyers might say, I'll do it amicus curiae, meaning court of the friend, meaning I'll do it for free. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. You're always going to get whacked a fee, right? And it's difficult, especially when you've been innocent and paid your taxes all your goddamn life.
Yes, well, we've been conditioned to trust lawyers as well. And, it's amazing how many people are nowadays self-represented because of the ridiculous legal fees. And the thing is, your case better than anyone else. We had a situation here at my house in Southport where the police turned up one day and I had someone at home that answered the door. I wasn't here, and they came looking for a previous tenant that used to live at the property who was wanted by police. And the person said to the police 3 times, this guy is not here. And they forced their way on the property. They threw this man to the ground. They basically dislocated his shoulder. They put his arm so far back behind his back that it actually ended up ripping his shoulder, which he's been in pain ever since. They handcuffed him so tight that the handcuffs led his wrist to bleed. And they were here looking for someone else without a search warrant. And we had a no trespass sign on the door, and they said that doesn't apply to us. that doesn't apply to the police, our no trespass sign, right? And they come on the property. Sure enough, they find the guy's not here. And then they actually charge the person they've just thrown to the ground. They charge him with obstructing police. Now, this
the cover charge, the insurance charge, the backup charge.
Right. So this person took the police directly to court several times. Eventually, it all got wiped, right? It all got wiped as far as the obstruct police was unjustified because the police made up stories in court that this person had attacked them. Lucky we had our own video footage because suddenly, somehow, the camera footage on the police bodices suddenly in that section didn't work properly or, there's some kind of technical glitch in the bit that would have shown that person never actually attacked them, of course. And so now he's gone for obstruct police. That's been wiped out. And now he's seeking damages through the state government. And now he's getting a runaround from Southport Courthouse to Brisbane. They're saying, no, you've got to take it out on the police. And then the police say, no, you've got to take it out on the state government. And it's just going run around. It's going to cost thousands of dollars to now submit this to actually get damages paid. But this guy is not giving up. He's going to take this all the way, and so he should, because these bastards, these people are meant to be protecting us. They come onto a perfectly safe situation, they create drama, they abuse someone on our property, and they think they can get away with it because most people have too much fear to actually stand up and step up and say.
You've identified two things there straight away, and I'm surprised that the magistrate or the court officer, or whether it was a judge or a magistrate, did not recommend that there should be assault charges against those police officers and also charges of perverting the course of justice of what they were saying in the court. Now, it really, those court documents should be sent to I'd imagine it was in Queensland, was it?
It was in Queensland.
Okay, that should be sent to the Queensland Attorney General, and there should be an inquiry into what happened, because the first thing you've identified, if what you've just said, and I don't doubt that it's not the truth, this is the truth show, by the way.
Right. Nothing but the truth.
That what you've just said to me, that those police officers should be investigated for assault and pervert the course of justice. Otherwise, the Queensland Attorney General's Department is not doing its job.
Exactly. 100%. And look, it's unraveling right now. They're going through the process now, and he's going to be seeking hundreds of thousands of dollars in damages, and so he should. And let's see how this all unrolls. And that's why I say, Steve, I think really for you also, like I would say, take this the whole way. Do whatever needs to be done to actually get you should be getting at least $500,000 back plus all the extra damages for ruining your reputation. And I read online too that it's affected you mentally and physically. I mean, what have been some of the other effects of all of this on you?
Well, the effects on my son and my daughter and my wife and the family. I'll just give you an example. My son knows some young police officers from New South Wales, and I know that they've said things to him in private over a beer. Oh, well, what about your father? What a nice piece of shit he is. So you got to put up with the ongoing defamation of what they've done. But the biggest thing that I see here, the Australian Federal Police only, and I'm not sure what it's like in the FBI, and I have been to the FBI and the training centre in Quantico over there. I've done stories with the FBI over the years. But the Australian Federal Police, in Australia you have New South Wales, Victoria, Northern Territory, Queensland, South Australia, Western Australia. You have the state police forces, and they are very rigorous operations, right? And they go and cover and have long training, just like the basics, the sheriff's office and things like that in different parts of counties and that in America, and they are well trained. With the Australian Federal Police, what you find is that they come out of the academy, and then all of a sudden, at a very young age, with no life skills, you're now on organised crime. You're now counter-terrorism. You're now this. And they have not got the proper training. Mistakes happen. Things happen. People end up in court when they should not be in court. And that's what I see as a very, very big problem. And,
it is.
And unfortunately, the politicians responsible for this, now it's the Minister for Home Affairs. They keep changing their names. It used to be the Minister of Justice, Prime Ministers. I mean, they're only around for 4 or 5 or 6 years and then they're gone. Things get changed, but mistake after mistake after mistake keeps happening, right? And I think the time's come to have a real good look. And I go back to my central issue. When you read their own policies and documents, and the same thing happens in England and other places and other countries in America, that the police are the first investigators, then they set a brief of evidence of what they say happened, whether it's truthful or not, whether they relied on a serial liar to help them form the brief of evidence. That brief of evidence in that black area there where they brief the actual district attorney's office or the director of public prosecution's office. What goes on in the middle there is what we don't know. And I'm a great believer in opening up the closets and let the sun shine in. Sunshine's the best disinfectant.
Yes,
And
that's great.
That's what we're not seeing.
Yes. Let the Sunshine In. Great song as well, I must say. Now, we do need to start wrapping up, but totally agree with you there, Steve. And thank you for stepping up and speaking up about this today. It's been absolutely amazing having you on the show. We do have a final comment from our live viewers. Angel Black says, love to see Steve's story in Series 2. We would love to have you in Series 2, Steve. So love to chat with you about that, about sharing a chapter of your story before the full book comes out. That would be amazing. Absolutely. So yes, a story shared is a story halved. So as we're starting to wrap up now, Steve, could you share, please, your favorite quote or motto for us?
My favorite quote is, when you live in clover, and when you're dead all over.
Oh.
Yeah, that's kind of clever there. I like that.
Oh, that is a good one. And if people want to connect with you, where can they go?
Say that again. I missed that. Sorry.
If people want to connect with you, where can they go?
Probably the best is my email. And my email, if you want me to give it out now, it's BOX for box. So BOX1, the digit, box1 rat, which is RAT, at gmail.com. So box1 rat at gmail.com.
Beautiful. Okay, box number 1 rat at gmail.com. So reach out to Steve if you have any ideas to help his case to actually get some some compensation from whatever that word is, recompense from all of this.
And common sense too. I think we can marry those two words.
Some justice for justice to be done for Steve. Please reach out to him, or let him know how you found this show or any other ideas you have. Really would appreciate that. Steve, you're an absolute gem of a human being, and really, they say that great challenges aren't given to small souls. Great challenges are not given to small souls, and that's something Steve. You've been given these challenges for a reason. They're happening for you, or have happened for you, not to you. So there's a reason, as a journalist, you've been presented with this, and very excited to be able to share that here on Total Truth Show. So wrapping up, Ken Kleinberg. Ken, how can people connect with you?
So you might have caught wind about some health things that I was talking about in the industry there. And so I've lost 62.5 pounds, and I've been able to keep it off for 7+ years now, all without a diet and having that be sustainable. And right now I'm literally giving away my 3 secrets to not only help you to lose that weight, but to feel energized and get healthy without dieting or starving. In just 3 one-on-one sessions with me, I expose the 3 biggest lies that are keeping people sick, stuck, and overweight, because that's how that industry makes money. And I show how they can finally lose the weight sustainably and keep it off for life. And so that is my mini educational boot camp. It's an educational boot camp. It's not a workout plan, not an eating plan. It's educational. It will build a foundation that you will never be moved from again. So to connect with me, you can go to www.masteryweightloss.com/connect. And on that page, you find 4 buttons. One is to join that boot camp. The other one is to book a free strategy call with me. Maybe you're not sure what your next steps are. Let's get on a Zoom call. Let's unpack that. And then the other 2 buttons, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and then connect with me on Facebook. Lastly, here is my quote that I have. And I actually really like that. I just found this one. This is by Benjamin Franklin. Justice will not be served until those who are unaffected are as outraged as those who are.
Oh,
Agreed.
that's a good one, Ken. I
Agreed.
love it. Fantastic. And for those who want to connect with me, just go along to linktree/Aldwyn. That's linktr.ee/Aldwyn for those on the audio. And you'll find that all over my socials. In there, you will find some media tips and resources on my website. You'll find the link for the Global Good News Challenge, which is a free challenge every month where people can share gratitude and good news. And in fact, Dame Rita Rose and I, who are doing the next Fear to Freedom book, we actually did my first day of the 6-day challenge yesterday in Sydney, which you can see on socials today. And we shared gratitude and good news and a whole lot of cool information about all sorts of things. So check that out, Global Good News Challenge Facebook page. Also, if you are interested in coming into our next book, we have a few spots left for our book 2, which we will be launching this year in Sydney and the Gold Coast. It will be Amazon bestseller like the first one was. And we're inviting people at the moment to show expressions of interest. Either reach out to myself or Dame Rita Rose if you are interested in putting your story in here. 3,000 to 5,000 word story we're looking at for this, and we'll be we have a whole lot of support for you around that and helping you with your chapter. Also, we'll be doing all the design, the cover design, the editing, all that sort of thing as well. So reach out. We've got speaker training, all sorts of cool stuff. So reach out to myself or Dame Rita Rose if you are interested in coming into that. We've had a lot of people interested, but they're just not quite the right fit. So we want to make sure we've got the right people on board for this next book, and very excited about that coming out shortly. So connect on there again, linktree/Aldwyn. That's also my YouTube channel there, and all my other links, Instagram, LinkedIn, all my other social links, you'll find it all there. Now, my quote for today is by Martin Luther King Jr. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
That one's on my screen too. That's cool.
That's a cool one. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. If you don't,
Which is a little bit like evil prospers if good men and women do nothing.
Yes, I love that. I love that. And if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. That's another one of my favorites. If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. Oh, it's been an absolutely wonderful show. Steve, are there any final comments about either our topic, about the justice system, or anything else you'd like to share?
Well, I think the final comment is that no matter who you are in the justice system, whether you're a judge, chief judge, or just a young solicitor starting off, no one is above the law and everyone is accountable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think those with faith will know, as we are spiritual beings having this human experience, that at the end of the day, you've got to live with yourself. For those that are lying out there and conning people and doing this kind of behavior out there, at the end of the day, you have to live with yourself, right? When people lie, they know they've lied, right? Other people may not know they've lied, but they know they've lied. They have to live with themselves. And I do believe in karma, and I believe what comes around goes around. And I believe there's going to be a lot of people in high places, or most likely already are, living miserable lives. And because their lives are so miserable, they're doing their best to make everyone else's lives miserable. And the thing is to continually keep rising above it. keep rising above it, right? You just don't let the bastards get you down, right? And keep the good fight. I say keep the good fight. Ken, any final words from you?
No, that's it. I'll share one more little quote here that I also see on here. Never forget that justice is what love looks like in public. Cornel West.
Love, yes. Love versus fear. Yes, rise above it. Stay high vibe as much as possible. Be in joy, love, gratitude, peace, enlightenment. And, think of people like Viktor Frankl, who, they said they can do anything that they like to their body, but they can't affect your mind, right? So your mindset is really, really important. Thank you so much to our live viewers today. Angel Black says, thank you, Steve, Aldwyn, Ken. What a great show today. Thank you so much, Angel Black. Really appreciate you. Kerry Fozzard, Steve,
Thank
definitely.
you, Ken. And thank you, Aldwyn.
Thank you.
Okay.
And Kerry Fozzard, Steve definitely deserves compensation and justice. Absolutely, he does. Thank you so much, Kerry. Much love to you all. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Ken. We'll see you next time on Total.
Bye.
Bye.